1. Date 1. Seemed nice, so invited him in for literal coffee. Attempted rape. I broke his nose. He texted the next day to ask if we could pick up where we left off. He was a doctor in a women's psychiatric unit, and he knew where I lived. I moved 4 weeks later. Dusra. He was 45 minutes late picking me up. Weather was quite poor, so I gave him a pass. Get to the coffee shop, take off my jacket, and immediately he says, "I see you brought your A game, or should I say D game," referring to my breasts. I'm surprisingly busty for my frame. Even the people 2 tables over just stopped and looked at him. 3. I had invited a guy off a dating site to my house. When I opened the door, he said he could kill me if he wanted, and to never meet anyone off the internet again. My 2 male roommates were in the kitchen because they knew this guy was coming and heard him. They ran him out of the house PDQ. 4th, first date, we are at a Japanese restaurant. She asked me my star sign. I replied, Scorpio. She leaned over the table and slapped me clean and hard across the face. Naturally, I was shocked and confused. I mouthed, "What?" She firmly says, "I never date Scorpios." I went to the bathroom, came back, she had gone, and paid for everything. 5. She had 22 cats and would just randomly take in strays, not give them any vet care, and was planning on keeping a recent litter. I love cats. I paid the bartender when she went to the bathroom and hyperwalked to the door. Forwarded her contact info and a summary of what she told me to the Humane Society. 6. She wouldn't stop making fun of me. She was 26 and I was 36, though if it matters, we were at the same place in our careers and income. And she kept making ageist jokes about how I was old and decrepit. Eventually, after telling her pretty directly to lay off, I just said, "You know, I'm not enjoying this, I'm going to go," and paid for the table and left. Later, she said it was because she was overcompensating, because she was self-conscious about how much younger she was. But that just means that when she's uncomfortable, she goes straight to demeaning the other person. 7. I had to pick him up, and he complained about everything. My car, the way I drove, my music taste. Why was I being so quiet while carefully plotting my escape plan? Definitely the moment he said, "My friends really want to meet you. I need them to know you're real." And that's when I bounced. 8. He told me I wasn't pretty enough to be so confident. Like what? I was shocked, but the server came to my rescue and was like, "Girl, get out of here, no charge for your drink." 9. I had a first date with a girl who told me, "Actually, I'm engaged, but I'm not 100% sure if he's the right one. So I'm going to go out on a few dates to see if I change my mind." Check, please. We were talking about our pets, and I told her about my cat, and she said if we were to continue dating, I would have to get rid of him because she doesn't like cats. For a moment, I thought she was kidding because who would ask that of a first date, or any date? It became clear she wasn't kidding and was mad I wasn't taking her suggestion seriously. I didn't end up leaving. I was in the middle of my fettuccine Alfredo, and I wasn't about to scoop it into some doggy bag like some caveman. She took an Uber. I haven't had many memorably bad dates, but that was the worst. I'm willing to make certain reasonable changes for the right person, but cats are non-negotiable. 11th is Sernasharindirasan. We met at the restaurant. I had arrived first to get a table. The server showed her over. We shook hands. I pushed her chair in. The server asked if we would like a drink or to hear the specials. She picked up the menu, asked the server for a wine list without even looking at them, looked intently at me and said, "How much money do you make?" I said, "Excuse me?" in a confused tone, somewhat taken aback. She stared at me and said very slowly and deliberately, "How much money do you make in a year?" I looked over at the server who was still standing there with a really awkward look on their face, thanked them for their assistance so far, turned to my date and said I was sorry, but I had to leave, and I got up and walked out. 12th, we chatted online. At the time, I was a smoker and told him. He said no big deal because he smokes too. Decided to meet up at Starbucks for coffee. First thing he said, "Hi. By the way, when I said I smoke, I was talking about meth." I said, "Oh, bye," and turned around and left. 13, went to pick up my blind date. She opened the door and looked at me. "You?" I looked at her and said, "Yeah, I agree," and turned on my heel and left. Total date time, less than 5 minutes. 14, the fact that within 10 minutes of meeting him, he He started making sexual comments and joking about following me home so he could stalk me if I rejected him. I got out with the help of a bartender who let me leave out the back door. 15. On a first date with a military guy. He spent a large portion of the date talking about why the strippers in Toronto were better than the strippers where we lived. To change the topic, I asked him if he did any volunteer work with the military overseas, and he said no. I joined the military to kill people, not help people. I got my bill, chugged my beer, and left as fast as I could. 16. Not me, but this happened to a friend. Context, friend has a beard. So my friend picks up this girl, and they're on their way to dinner, and she says, "You do realize that if this is gonna work, you have to shave that off, right?" He didn't say anything, just turned around and dropped her back off at her house. 17. Having the usual get-to-know-you conversation over drinks. I was telling how my car was stolen the night before, and her response was, "Don't you just hate blacks?" I never said who stole it. I was out of there. 18. He was a friend of a friend. He went to a restaurant and ordered our food. While we waited, he started to say things like, "First I'll eat this meal, then I'll eat you out." I laughed because I thought he's just joking. I thought he's just nervous and his mouth lost his filter. Then when the waitress later asked if we want more to drink, he was like, "Yes, bring us something strong." I said not for me and that I have to drive later and just want a Coke. And he looked at me and was like, "Don't be stupid. You think I'll fuck you once and let you leave? You'll at least stay the night." The waitress looked at me with wide eyes, like I'm crazy for even being there. After she left, I told him that he has to stop with this, that it was rude, and that we're on our first date. He apologized, and for 10 minutes, it was okay. Then, as if a switch was turned on, he said just like that, mid-sentence, without even ending his previous story, "You know what? I can't control myself anymore. Either we go now or I'll fuck you on this table." I told him I'll go to the bathroom. He complained like a baby that we have to go now. I went anyway and went to the waitress, paid for the food, and left without a word. 19. Had a first date with a girl who insisted we go to a really expensive place where she ordered a $25 appetizer, $45 steak, and a $15 drink. She wouldn't put down her phone, kept taking calls and answering texts. The waitress noticed and motioned for me from behind her. I excused myself, and the waitress had separate bills all made up and asked if I wanted to pay my share and leave her at the table. I said, "That would be wonderful," so I did. 20. Great chats online, decided to meet in person. He's got a Bluetooth headset with a little LED light that shows it's on. He keeps it on during drinks. I work up the nerve to ask if he can take off the headset while we're eating dinner. With pride and complete confidence, he says, "Don't worry. You totally have my full attention. This isn't a phone headset, it's a camera." 21. He brought 2 friends along, which was unexpected. They were all drunk. I flagged down a waitress while one guy left to go do something. I ordered my food. The other 2 confessed they'd already eaten. Third guy walks back into the restaurant, dripping blood from a horrific gash in his arm. In shock, I ran to my car and grabbed my first aid kit, cleaned and butterflied the wound, bandaged it, had the guy elevate his arm while the waitress called 911. Got cleaned up, returned to find the uninjured guys had just eaten my food. Grabbed my kit and my purse and walked out. I drove us, started to parallel park, been working our parking in SF for years by then, and he said, "I'll park this for you. Women don't do well at parallel parking." At dinner, he was dismissive only to female waitstaff. I ran into these 2 hilariously drunk surfer dudes on my way from the bathroom. They told me my date was a jerk. We laughed about it, and I went back to my table. When leaving, the drunk dudes were also outside. I said bye to them, and Asolio had the nerve to bark, "She's with me." I told him to wait while I got in the car and unlocked the doors, except I didn't. I drove off and left him standing there. The 2 drunk dudes whooped and yelled, "Go, lady, go!" Such an awesome finish to a terribly embarrassing date. 24th, blind date set up by my grandparents. I love my granddad, and he's done so much for me, so I went. We met at a bar where my best friend worked. We get drinks, and I'm talking to my friend. He says, "This homo trying to hook up with you?" 1. He's not gay, 2. It wouldn't matter if he was 3. He was just checking in on me. So I'm already done with him at this point, but my ride is still over an hour away. His mate shows up at one point and starts trying to flirt with me. It was gross. My date then starts asking about my hot friends and if I can get them to come out. I said, I like my friends, so no. He starts being racist against Pacific Islanders and was horribly rude to this German guy there drinking. When my ride gets there, I said, I'm leaving. He said, I've got a big dog cack. You should come home with me. I said, thanks, but I'd rather gouge out my eyes. The next day, he messaged me and said, you probably think I'm a bit of a cod after last night, but do you want to go out again? I had no intentions of ever seeing him again, so I explained why his behavior was unacceptable and suggested he try making friends who are girls so he sees them as something other than a hole to stick his duck in. I told my grandparents everything. They told his parents, and apparently his dad was super embarrassed. My grandparents were then informed to stay out of my love life, and anytime they brought it up, I just say, I've got a big dog. You should come home with me. 25th first date. Went bowling, turned around, and he was going through my phone. A little soon, I think.